Funding for the Nashville podcast comes from the Hal Allen Clinic, specializing in minimally invasive robotic spine surgery and laser brain tumor surgery. For 40 years, the neurosurgeons of the Hal Allen Clinic have been national leaders in brain and spine surgery.
This podcast is made possible by you, the supporters of WPLN and WNXP, Nashville Public Radio. This is the Nashvillager podcast. It's April 22nd, 2026, and on this day in 1898, Nashville started a war. Okay, that's oversimplified to the point of being incredibly misleading, but don't worry, I'm going to explain what really happened. I'm Nina Cardona, and this is your daily digest of what's happening around Middle Tennessee with historical context from Nashville Public Radio, WPLN News. All right, so that thing about starting a war, it wasn't the city of Nashville. And there'd been some other pretty big actions leading up to the moment. But this was the day when a naval vessel named for our city fired the first shots that officially meant the Spanish-American War was underway. It's one of those conflicts that tends to get glossed over in history classes. I don't expect you to remember what it was all about, if you even remember that it happened at all. Basically, by the late 1800s, the once vast Spanish Empire was down to just a handful of colonies. Some areas of North Africa, the Philippines, Puerto Rico, and Cuba. In those last two, people were really pushing back against colonial rule, starting with uprisings in the late 1860s. And in Cuba specifically, by the 1890s, things were really bad. Cuban patriots mounted a full-scale insurgence. The Spanish general in charge of things there was nicknamed the Butcher, and he lived up to his name by forcing Cubans to live in so-called reconcentration areas with inadequate food, shelter, and medical care. Here in the U.S., there had been some talk on and off, starting all the way back with President James K. Polk, that it might be a good idea for Cuba to be an American territory, not a Spanish one. And even aside from that, Americans were generally very sympathetic to the Cuban cause. There was even a push in Congress for the United States to officially recognize the insurgency as having a right to fight against the Spanish colonial government. But President Grover Cleveland and then, after an election, President William McKinley really tried to stay out of it. The fighting in Cuba went on for several years. It got more and more intense. Eventually, out of concern for the safety of U.S. citizens that were there, the Navy sent one lone battleship, the U.S.S. Maine, to the port of Havana. More than anything, it was there to send a message. And then the U.S.S. Maine exploded. 266 members of her crew died. We still don't know for sure what happened. There was an investigation. It was inconclusive. But the sensationalist press of the time, the so-called yellow journalism newspaper chains run by rivals Joseph Pulitzer and William Randolph Hearst, took a germ of information and ran with it. Both newspaper empires went with the assumption that a Spanish mine or torpedo was to blame. They invented stories. They went to press with giant all-caps headlines declaring things like Spain guilty. And even as more measured newspapers ran editorials pointing out the blatant fiction being published in the Hearst and Pulitzer publications, the general public fell for the tale that they spun. People were angry. They wanted action. They wanted Spain out of Cuba now, and they were ready for the U.S. to get involved. And so with the rallying cry of, "Remember the Maine," resounding all across the U.S., President McKinley agreed that this nation had to get involved. He got the okay from Congress to declare war if diplomatic pressure didn't work. And with that in hand, he sent an ultimatum to Spain on April 20th. Leave Cuba or else. The next day, Spain sent back its answer. Absolutely not. Now, there was already a group of Navy ships docked at Key West, ready to head to Cuba at a moment's notice. And sure enough, before the clock struck midnight after that Spanish response, they were on their way. The unit included an armored cruiser, a couple of battleships, torpedo boats, and 3 gunboats, one of which was the relatively new U.S.S. Nashville, under the command of a Tennessee captain, Knoxvillian Washburn Maynard. When the sun rose, the Americans spotted a merchant steamer flying Spanish colors. The U.S.S. Nashville was sent off to intercept. The gunship fired 3 shots. That was enough to do serious damage to the Spanish ship. The Americans captured the vessel and accompanied it back to Key West. Now, that wasn't a naval vessel. Its crew hadn't realized what was going on between their nation and ours. But with that, America was officially at war with Spain. The fighting quickly spread to Puerto Rico and the Philippines, and after just a few months, it was over. An armistice was signed that August. And with that, there was nothing left of the Spanish Empire in the Americas. Through the war, the U.S.S. Nashville was used to enforce a blockade of Cuba. After the fighting was over and the United States purchased the Philippines, the ship was sent to Manila for a while. For the rest of the time it was in service, the gunship was sent all around the world with periodic spells not far from the waters near Cuba, where it made history. Eventually, it was sold to a private owner who cut the ship down into a barge and used it to haul logs in Virginia. In the years since, 2 other Navy ships have been named for our city. The last was an amphibious transport vessel, and it was decommissioned nearly 20 years ago. In just a few minutes, this week's edition of What Wear Wednesday. That's coming up after the newscast.
Funding for the Nash Villager podcast comes from the Hal Allen Clinic, specializing in minimally invasive robotic spine surgery and laser brain tumor surgery. For 40 years, the neurosurgeons of the Hal Allen Clinic have been national leaders in brain and spine surgery.
You know how important WPLN News has been to you and your family, and you have seen how high-quality local journalism is necessary to a thriving community. You can ensure that this service stays strong and stays available to all of Nashville and Middle Tennessee. Join the Producers Circle with your gift of $100 or more each month and make the bold statement that you support the mission of a more informed and engaged community. Start your philanthropic journey with Nashville Public Radio today at WPLN.org.
Here's the latest from WPLN News. Tennesseans will soon have to prove citizenship if they want to work as a nurse, electrician, or other jobs that require a license. The State House has passed a measure in coordination with the White House's immigration agenda that will ban undocumented people from holding professional licenses. Democrats in both chambers yesterday had the same question.
Where did this legislation come from?
Did this bill come from anyone in particular? Did you hear instances of people who are undocumented having licenses, or where did this bill come from, the impetus of it?
Seems like it is legislation seeking a problem that doesn't actually exist right now.
While Republicans have been open with media about the legislative package's ties to Homeland Security Advisor Stephen Miller and the Trump administration, Republican sponsors Mark Cochran and Paul Bailey didn't name names.
People of Tennessee have demanded protection, and so the Republican caucus have decided to provide that.
There's been multiple other states here in the U.S. that are passing legislations to make sure that those that are seeking a license are duly qualified as U.S. citizens or aliens.
Bailey is referencing Oklahoma, another state that has been open about passing legislation in coordination with the White House. The bill now heads to the governor for his signature. Both the State House and Senate have passed the so-called Fair RX Act. It says in Tennessee, companies are not allowed to own a pharmacy that sells drugs while also owning the insurer that pays for the drugs and also owning a PBM. That stands for Pharmacy Benefit Manager. It's a corporate middleman that negotiates with drug makers, insurers, and pharmacies. Critics say that giants like CVS have an unfair advantage when they control so much of the system. CVS has been at the center of this debate after dropping millions of dollars on advertisement, social media, and text campaigns, saying this bill would shutter pharmacies across Tennessee. That includes the 134 CVS pharmacies in the state. The company is also in the spotlight because a state audit found the pharmacy chain was engaging in unfair business practices. Senator Bobby Harshbarger, himself a pharmacist, has been harsh towards CVS through the process, and that continued during the bill's final Senate vote.
There's a principle that says all warfare is based on deception. I'm not saying that to be inflammatory. I'm saying it as a reminder. There will be information designed to lead you to a conclusion. The nation's eyes are upon us today. We can either defend the status quo or we can fix what the audits clearly show is broken.
CVS issued a statement saying that it is prepared to challenge the law in federal court. It already sued Arkansas for passing a similar bill. Tennessee lawmakers are overriding the governor and restoring the state's participation in a federal program that helps feed families over the summer. WUOT's Pierce Gentry reports low-income families can hope to see payments of $120 per child in 2027.
The state legislature set aside $7 million it says Tennessee will need to manage the USDA's summer EBT program next year. Tennessee last participated in that program in 2024, But Governor Bill Lee declined the federal funds in 2025 and 2026, citing the roughly $5 million cost to the state to manage and distribute electronic bank cards.
The focus is not on our families, it's on other things that they're prioritizing.
That's Signe Anderson, Director of Nutrition Advocacy for the Tennessee Justice Center. Her team is behind a bipartisan bill that would force the governor to readopt the summer EBT program. That bill has stalled, but Anderson says having the budget for it is the next best thing. For now.
The kids that we serve are hungry this summer, and families will be struggling with food insecurity and hunger in 2028. So we would really like a more immediate and long-term solution for addressing hunger amongst our families in Tennessee.
While the General Assembly has earmarked the funds for 2027, there's no guarantee they'll be used for summer EBT. The governor and the Department of Human Services will still have to accept the federal funds. I'm Pierce Gentry, WUOT News.
Nashville Electric Services Board could soon be overhauled. WPLN's Cynthia Abrams reports that a bill requiring utilities to include board representatives from surrounding counties has passed both the House and the Senate.
The bill is specific in that it only applies to electric companies that serve 50,000 customers outside their home county. Effectively, this means
this is legislation that applies to exactly one utility in Nashville Electric Service.
That's Senator Jeff Yarbrough. The legislature has been eyeing changes to NES ever since Winter Storm Fern caused mass outages in Middle Tennessee. But Nashville lawmakers, like Yarbrough, say the storm is being used as an excuse to wrest control from the city.
We have seen bill after bill after bill that's about changing governance here, and frankly, about taking governance away from a few disfavored cities.
But proponents of the bill, like Senator Jack Johnson from Williamson County, say it's about representation.
It's very frustrating when you have to tell your constituents that, well, the board of that municipal utility that provides electricity to you, all of the appointments are from a Nashville elected official.
The bill would require NES to add board members from each county it operates in with more than 3,500 members. Cynthia Abrams, WPLN News.
Both chambers approved the bill, but the House version had additional amendments. The Senate must now decide whether to adopt the House version. In Nashville, recycling trucks will haul off your old cardboard, cans, plastic bottles, jugs, and jars. Metro convenience centers will take everything from dead batteries to old motor oil. But what about packing foam? Starting this Earth Day, the city has a place to take your polystyrene foam, a.k.a. styrofoam. Mayor Freddie O'Connell is set to cut the ribbon and put the first piece in the new foam recycling system. That's at the East Convenience Center off Trinity Lane. You'll find more news anytime at WPLN.org. South Nashville has truly become Nashville's melting pot, and it's all coming together this weekend. Marquise can tell you more.
I'm Marquise Munson here with another edition of Nashville Public Radio's What Were Wednesday, keeping you up to date with the happenings in Nashville this week. Starting tonight with Currency at Marathon Music Works. On Thursday night, WNXP presents Gatlin at the Blue Room. Also on Thursday, Robin Hitchcock is at the Basement East. Back at the Blue Room on Saturday is Rit Momney and Haley Williams performing 3 nights at the Ryman. Former WNXP Nashville Artist of the Month, Rat Ferreira, is at Dark Matter, and wrap up this week's listings with hip-hop duo Arm & Hammer performing at the Blue Room. Check out more up-and-coming events by visiting WNXP.org/events.
You could call me Miss Paramore, 'cause I miss you like I miss the rage, like I miss real ink on a page. Who knew my baby, who knew the hard times for the good old days. I miss you.
This week for What Were Wednesday, we feature Flat Rock Fest happening this Saturday at Glencliff High School. The free, volunteer-led community festival brings together live music, local vendors, community organizations, and a kids zone with an instrument petting zoo while focusing on the diversity and energy of the South Nashville community.
My name is Tony Zavidson. I am Vice President of Glencliff Neighbors in South Nashville. We originally started Flat Rock Fest in 2007 to 2014. They had a run of it at Coleman Park for a few years. And then in 2025, we decided we wanted to start it up again. We had a new board. We saw a great need and a great desire for neighbors to start getting involved in their local communities. They don't always know how, and they don't know where to start. It seems daunting to them. And we want to make sure that they know that we're here to help them take that first step into getting more involved in their communities, because that's what it takes. And we're just really ready to showcase some of our local talent in Nashville. There's a lot of talent and great spots here, and we wanted Flat Rock Fest to be the stage for that.
My name is Lauren Sublett. I'm the founder of Music City Muse. I live in South Nashville, and Tony is a big activist in our neighborhood and a huge treasure. And like him, I saw that we don't have the community spaces that other parts of the city do, but we also have so many beautiful things about South Nashville that people don't realize unless you live there. When I met Tony, I knew that I just wanted to help him. I'm really passionate about grassroots efforts, building community. Art and music are a great way to do that. So I wanted to help him produce the festival, help with the music, and help him execute it so we can make this a big annual thing year to year. It was really important to me because where we live is Little Kurdistan. We also have a thriving Hispanic community. So I wanted to have Latin music represented. So we're going to have a 5-piece Latin fusion band, the best of the best in the city, Melvin Macias. We'll have congas, timbales. We also wanted to have Kurdish music represented. So the Kurdish Cultural Association has been really supportive, and they're going to do a full performance of traditional Kurdish music. And then we're also going to have soul and funk and jazz represented as well with some of Nashville's finest, because we have so many incredible musicians here. So it was really important to us that the businesses involved, from the food to the vendors to the organizations to the music, all represent the diversity and beauty in South Nashville.
It's been really cool to watch our community grow and our network in our community grow. Because when I joined the board, this would have been 2024, we had 3 people on the board, and we had maybe 5 to 10 people that would come out to any event that we had. And now people are coming out by the thousands, and it's because they realize, hey, my neighbors are actually really cool. Like, we have so many talented people in this community, not just in art, but people who are talented teachers, talented gardeners, talented chefs, talented, just in anything you can think of. And so for those people to connect and link up and share their talents and work together, that's what makes a really strong community. And that's another thing we're really pushing for with these events.
I want to point out, with the Glencliff Neighborhood Association that is doing this and that Tony's a big part of, they do all those events, they're all free and they're all executed by volunteers. And I just think that's a beautiful thing, and that focusing on grassroots now is more important than ever. People need community. Creating a space, to me, is one of the most powerful things you can do as an activist, literally just creating that space. I want to see this grow, and I want to see it grow to where the rest of the city is paying attention, and we just build it year to year, and we get to showcase South Nashville year to year, and the rest of the city comes and checks us out.
For more information on Flat Rock Fest and other events happening this week, visit WNXP.org. My name is Marquise Munson, and thank you for listening to another edition of What We're Wednesday.
Thanks for listening to the Nash Villager podcast. We take this look at Nashville news every weekday. If you like it, go ahead and subscribe on your favorite podcasting app and tell a friend, or give us a mention on your socials. It really helps get the word out. And of course, everything at WPLN News is listener supported. You can become a member at WPLN.org. And that's it for today. Thanks so much for listening. Let's make this day a good one, and we'll catch back up tomorrow.
Funding for the Nash Villager podcast comes from the Hal Allen Clinic, specializing in minimally invasive robotic spine surgery and laser brain tumor surgery. For 40 years, the neurosurgeons of the Hal Allen Clinic have been national leaders in brain and spine surgery.